Hello there, Shortcuts. This is Stephen here. This is video one for the Shortcuts price list, which will go out 9 p.m. this Wednesday, the 11th of December. If you would like to be on the price list, drop me a note at shortcutsrecordsaus@gmail.com. Now, this list is jazz, some blues, there's some folk, and there's some soundtracks. And there's a new feature, which Finbar insisted on. He said, "Do you mind if I pick my favourite sleeve? And would you tell everyone that this is my favourite?" And I said, "Of course." So in this particular selection for this week, his favourite sleeve is in the genre list, and it is the last record, and it is a blues record, and a great blues record at that. Now, this list, I'm going to start, and there's lots of jazz here, but trust me, really accessible and interesting, and in many cases, beautiful jazz, including one of my all-time favorite records, if not my favorite. So many of you who've been here, and I maybe played you a piece of music, it is not beyond the realms of possibility that I chose to play you the opening track of Blue and Sentimental by Ike Quebec. Now, Ike Quebec is probably my favorite jazz musician, and not far behind is the person who is in the second record on the list, Sonny Clark. Dial S for Sonny. Now, why have I shown you both? That is because both of these incredible artists died in the same year. That is 1963. Ike Quebec died of lung cancer, and Sonny Clark died at only 31 years of age of a heroin overdose, a suspected heroin overdose. Both battling really tough mental, physical illness and troubles while making these stunning records, and they really are stunning. Blue and Sentimental. If my house were on fire, and I hope this never happens, if I had to grab one record, I think I would grab Blue and Sentimental by Ike Quebec. So he was born in Newark, New Jersey. He actually did most of his playing in the 40s, and in the 50s he had a really hard time due to addiction and health problems. And he was only really welcomed back into the fold, albeit tentatively, by Blue Note in the late 50s. And he then played as a side artist on a number of records. In fact, he played on Sonny Clark's last record. They only ever played on one song together, on Leapin' and Lopin', which happened to be Sonny Clark's last recording. I think it's his last recording for Blue Note. Somebody might be able to correct me there. So their paths never really, overlapped. But Ike Quebec is this beautiful, breathy, accessible, melodic saxophone sound. And the key to this particular quartet that he plays with is Grant Green on guitar. And rounding it out is Paul Chambers and Philly Joe Jones, both classic Blue Note session players. The first 30 seconds of Blue and Sentimental feature Grant Green playing a descending chord, and then in the right channel, Ike Quebec just starts to play the saxophone in probably the deepest saxophone tone that you will have heard. And he stays in that tone. And because it's so well recorded, you can hear him breathing, shadow breathing into the instrument. It's absolutely amazing. And then Grant Green takes over and plays my favorite Grant Green solo. Grant Green is often very reserved, but in this solo, he's bending the strings and he's really going for it. And then the drums kick in. Philly Joe Jones goes to town. The last minute is just mesmerizing. I utterly love this record. Everything about it is awesome. Now this particular pressing, it's still in the shrink. It's got all the notes on the back. Opening track on side 2, Blues for Charlie, is also incredible. Don't Take Your Love From Me. This is the Japanese pressing that came out as a special edition. Actually, I'm not sure it was pressed in Japan. There's very little information. What I can tell you, I played this earlier, the record is like new. It sounds really, really good. And this book is lovely. Now, it is in Japanese, but it does have some fabulous photos of Ike Quebec. A series of them. Yeah, it's just great. And, Sonny Clark also died 1963. Now, this album came out a little bit before Blue and Sentimental. I think this is 57 or 58. And here you have Curtis Fuller on trombone, Hank Mobley on tenor sax, who's also awesome, Sonny Clark on piano, Wilbur Ware and Louis Hayes on the rhythm section. And this is the most pitch perfect, beautiful piano jazz. It is utterly gorgeous. And I think all of them are Sonny Clark originals. So, he could write his own music, albeit in this very compressed period, and he died way too young. Cool Struttin' is probably the iconic Sonny Clark record, but Dial S for Sonny is right up there, and is a beautiful, beautiful copy. All right, in the latest box, I've also been given a selection of just great Miles Davis presses. I'm just going to go through each of them. I'm not going to choose any particular order. I'm going to probably start with this one because I've never had it before. Now this is still in the shrink. There's the Obi at the top and the Swing Journal seal of approval. For those of you who don't know what the Swing Journal seal of approval means, the Swing Journal was the Japanese kind of canon magazine on genre, music, jazz, blues, etc. And if it loved a record, it would give it the seal of approval. So the SJ seal of approval would become a thing. And in this case, it's just a fantastic record. For those of you who don't know 1958 Miles, this is the record he did just before Kind of Blue. And it features the same classic quintet. So you've got John Coltrane, Cannonball Adderley, Bill Evans, Paul Chambers, Jimmy Cobb, and Miles. And it's always overshadowed by A Kind of Blue for all sorts of, pretty obvious reasons. Kind of Blue was such a groundbreaking record, but 1958 Miles has its own legacy. It obviously captures Miles Davis in a transformative period, leading and building his way to modal jazz. You will never see a better copy. It is absolutely pristine. That's the label, of course. This is recorded on CBS Sony. That's why it doesn't look like Blue Note. I guess it has its own legacy. I mean, it's I guess, of course not Miles Quintet. I realize my errors. The Miles Sextet. It also features songs that were on soundtracks, and there are also some live tracks. So it's quite a mix. But I think it's rather great. And lays the table for one of the greatest albums of all time. I should have done this in a better order, but anyway, I've got Miles Davis, Walkin'. Now, 1958 Miles, does what it says in the tin. It was recorded in 1958. I believe Walkin' was recorded in 54. And Walkin', early period Miles, in the same way that I mentioned the issues with addiction and getting his health back together, Miles was in a similar place. He was reestablishing himself in many ways as a leading figure in jazz and recorded these series of records, Walking, Steaming, Relaxing, etc. This one on the Green Prestige label. And Walking in particular, as the clue might be in the title, is definitely more of the ballad, kind of slow burn Miles Davis. It's tracks like Blue and Boogie are a bit more up tempo, but in general, this is a very bluesy kind of 3/4 beat, just really very, very, very accessible. If I'm reaching for a Miles record and I don't want to piss off my wife, this is one of the ones that I will reach for. The title track, Walking, is wonderful. It really kind of, you can hear the start of hard bop. And it is still quite sophisticated music, but I like how bluesy it is. In this case, the pianist on here is Horace Silver, who I really enjoy on this record. And then the final one of the three that I wanted to talk to you about, because again, I've just been getting these amazing Miles records. I hope they continue, because so many of you should have them. They're just wonderful. I was actually surprised that Finbar didn't choose this as his favourite sleeve. This is certainly my favourite sleeve of everything that I'm going to be doing in the next couple of hours. This is Sorcerer Miles Davis. Now, I had this relatively recently, and I'll probably have it again, because I keep saying to them, just give it to me, because it's so great, and I just want more and more people to have it. Miles Davis, into his, what's called now his second great quintet you heard earlier. This time you've got Herbie Hancock, Wayne Shorter, Ron Carter, Tony Williams. It's utterly magnificent. This record is a little bit more forward thinking. And a bit more experimental. But don't think of it as a challenge. It really isn't. It's utterly wonderful. It can be fiery though, so there are times when, these musicians let rip. Prince of Darkness, Mascalero, probably two of my favourites, but I really like, and you can kind of hear where he ends up with jazz fusion. But it's a really, really, really cool record, and I hope someone out there picks it up. I love it. I want more people to have it. Okay, now you all know how much I love Nina Simone. And again, I love it when I open my boxes and Nina Simone is there. Nina Simone and piano. This is probably the second or third Nina Simone record that I ever got early on. The first... Actually, I'm not going to tell you what the first Nina Simone record I got is, because it'll be in a box in a week or two. But this was really early on. And what I like about it is that it just showcases Nina and her piano and her voice. What an iconic voice. And the thing about this particular album that confused me at the time but delights me now is that it is jazz. It is gospel. It is folk. It almost feels classical in places, but it's just Nina. She was so singular. Tracks like Nobody's Fault But Mine, I Think It's Gonna Rain Today, they're really vulnerable and beautiful and really suits her. And she sounds happy. Some of her other recordings, sometimes you can tell that life was getting her down. And so whilst this album is poignant in places and emotional because she couldn't help herself, because that's who she was, it's really, really lovely. And so very authentic and very Nina. And not, I guess, in the list of the 10 greatest Nina records, but I love it very much. Nina Simone and piano. All right, so in this jazz section, before we move on to some reggae, this is the final one. And in many ways, this might well be my favorite of all the records I've mentioned other than Blue and Sentimental. And that is Backlash by the wonderful Freddie Hubbard. Another fabulous sleeve. Look at that. I'm not sure if this is the Japanese first press. I'm going to have to look it up. It wouldn't surprise me if it is. It's on the Atlantic label. I don't know. I'm going to have to do my research. It'll be in the notes when the price list goes out. He was already a well-known jazz trumpeter, but I think that where Backlash kind of transitions into a type of jazz that I love is that it is much closer to funk in many places than it is to jazz. It really is, and soul in places. It's, songs like Backlash and particularly Little Sunflower. They're really infectious. They're total grooves. So unlike jazz, particularly modal jazz, where you're setting down a pattern that people have to conform to, where you're going with Backlash is you're setting down a groove, and Freddie's playing around his trumpet lines are playing around that groove, and there are other instruments that kind of place it in time, but also accentuate that kind of love of funk. So you'll hear a little bit of flute and piano. Who is the pianist? I think it might be Albert Daly. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I really, really like it. And I don't know, it's you mix hard bop and soul and funk, and you get something great. I really love this album. So anyway, I'll be very curious if anyone grabs it, what they think. Now, we're going to transition to a series of quite different reviews now. And if I can just find my notes. Let's see. We have the first white label promo, and I think it might be the only white label promo in both of tonight's lists, is this. The album is Soon Forward by Gregory Isaacs, who looks suitably high on that sleeve, doesn't he? I think that's... And then on the back, yeah, not much different. This is, late 70s now, 1979. What was Gregory Isaacs' nickname again? Oh, gosh. The Cool Ruler. That was it. He was on his way. And this album is a really interesting mix of social commentary and love songs. Pure, unadulterated love songs. And so it gives it a kind of a really kind of non-typical reggae feel. But because it's not yet transitioned into the 80s, you don't get that kind of open slap drum sound. So it's still, I think the roots reggae sound in the 70s, it still works a lot better for me. And his vocal style is still super smooth and accessible. Probably Babylon Too Rough, probably my favorite song on the album, although the title track, Soon Forward, is also excellent. But, he rode this album a pretty long way, and it went a long way to cementing him at the top of the kind of reggae tree. And I've got quite a few to go. I'm going to have to go a little bit more quickly now. What I've got are a series of US and UK first presses. There's 6 of them. I'm just going to quickly flick through them. So this is a UK first press from 1972. It is one of the best blues sampler kind of compilations you can ever find. Now, this was Finbar's second place record in terms of sleeve. The artists you have on here: Blind Willie Jelson, Son House, Big Bill Broonsy, J.D. Short, Fred McDowell. So you get this really acoustic, authentic blues experience. And it's really nicely recorded. A lot of these UK compilations were done properly. In this case, you can see a really beautiful condition, a really nice label as well. So I played some of this earlier, and Finbar was quite taken by it. It's very authentic, quite raw. For you blues heads out there, these things are cheap. This is going to be $20. That sounds incredible. How about these? A US first press of Blues is Truth by Brownie McGee. Now, Brownie McGee and Sonny Terry were, I guess, probably the leading light in that kind of acoustic blues scene. And Blues is Truth is, one of the few Brownie albums without Sonny Terry, and it's more about his really kind of deep velvety voice than it was with Sonny Terry. And so it kind of straddles blues and folk a little bit more than some of the things that they did together. It's quite contemporary. Love the guitar on it. It also features Louisiana Red. Trouble in Mind, probably my favorite song on that. It's a really, really influential and very beautiful record. Now, here's something that I don't have very often, and this is a classic folk record. This is Pentangling by the Pentangles UK press in fantastic condition. Late 60s, so 1968, I think this was released. So, this is a band that features the likes of John Renbourn and Bert Jansch. Jackie McShee was the vocalist who was very influential, kind of jazzy rhythm section, but a really influential acoustic band, very innovative. And, in the right collection, there's something really, really, really special here. Let No Man Steal Your Time is probably the highlight. You've got the Pentangle and Fairport Convention, and they're kind of leading the charge of kind of folk jazz fusion into the late 60s, early 70s. But it really would draw your attention to the guitar tones in this record. It's on the original Pickwick label as well. Now, probably my favorite record of this batch of 6 records is Willie May, also known as Big Mama Thornton. This is She's Back, late 60s comeback record in fantastic condition. That is a US first press from 1970. And this is a UK first press from 1964 in mono, along with my friends Memphis Slim. So where we spoke about Nina Simone being alone with her piano, you've got Memphis Slim doing his thing. And yeah, fantastic. And then finally, tantalizing with the blues, John Lee Hooker on the MCA label. This was late 60s, 1969. This one was reinforced his legacy. Really cool album for those of you who love the blues. Finally, before I get to the Finbar's favorite, I get 2 classic James Bond soundtracks. Thunderball, certainly the brassiest and most in your face of all of John Barry's soundtracks, but Octopussy has its closet fans. This one's complete with Obi, Rita Coolidge's All-Time High being the big hit. And then finally, you've all been wondering, what would Finbar choose? What's his favourite sleeve? And it's this. King Does the King's Things by Albert King. What an amazing album. 1970, Albert King sits down and he records Don't Be Cruel, Blue Suede Shoes, Hound Dog, Jailhouse Rock, Heartbreak Hotel, Love Me Tender, It's All Right, and All shook up as a blues tribute to Elvis Presley. How fantastic is that? I believe, I'm just going to check, this may well be a US first press. There we have the genre list tonight. As always, please like, subscribe, especially leave me a comment. YouTube bases everything on comments. I will love it very much and give you lots of love and appreciation if you can leave me a comment. I hope you found that discussion on jazz, blues, folk, soul, reggae interesting, and thank you so much if you made it this far. As always, I really enjoy doing these, so I hope you found something out of that, something new to explore. If you would like to be on the price list or to see the price list, drop me a line, shortcutsrecordsaus@gmail.com. All right, bye.